The blood on his shirt wasn't his. "Run, Jimin." Jungkook's voice cracked through the storm, cutting sharper than the blade pressed against his throat. Rain smashed against the cobblestones of the arena's alley like war drums, thunder ricocheting through the hollow ruins of a city that forgot its heroes. The smell of iron and smoke choked the night air, while neon reflections bled across the pools of water forming beneath the shattered archways. Jimin's breath came out ragged, each step echoing with desperation as he turned into the alley, the one nobody returned from. The arena had once been a sanctuary of art, of dance, of voice. Now it was an abandoned coliseum crawling with secrets, and tonight, blood had made it sacred again. Jimin's shoes splashed into crimson. He froze. Jungkook knelt before him, hands tied, head bowed, a fresh gash gleaming like a second mouth beneath his cheekbone. Behind him, a silhouette rose, a man with eyes like glass, holding the blade that had once belonged to Jimin's father. Time fractured. Jimin hadn't wanted to come back to this cursed city, let alone return as a consultant for a syndicate that used poetry as code and pain as currency. But he had no choice. Not after what happened in Prague, not after what he lost. "Look at me, Min." Jungkook's voice was calm now, almost resigned. "Whatever they told you, it's a lie." He wanted to believe him. God, he wanted to. But the file, the one slipped under his hotel door 2 nights ago, showed Jungkook shaking hands with the very man who ordered the assassination of Jimin's family. "Tell me it's not true." Jimin's voice broke against the wind. "Tell me you didn't sell me out." Jungkook smiled, and it wasn't the smile of guilt or innocence. It was something far more dangerous. The smile of someone who knew something too big to say out loud. "Do you still believe in eternal love, Park Jimin?" The words crashed into him like the first day at the arena, years ago, when their fingers brushed on stage under blinding lights and adrenaline. When love wasn't war yet. Now it was everything war had made it to be. Strategic, brutal, and inevitable. The man with the blade didn't wait. His swing came fast, a silver arc through darkness, but Jimin was faster. Years of choreographed movement exploded into instinct. Jimin ducked, twisted, kicked. The blade flew. Jungkook rolled away, ropes snapping loose with a hidden blade strapped to his wrist. The alley came alive in violence. Gunshots shattered windows, a scream from above, someone watching, someone orchestrating. They weren't just being hunted. They were being tested. Jimin tackled the assailant to the ground, pinning him, his hand trembling as he pointed a pistol at the attacker's temple. "Who sent you?" "You already know," the man hissed. "You just don't remember." The fog inside Jimin's head pulsed again, like it did in Prague, like it did every time he tried to remember the last words his mother whispered before the fire consumed her. The trauma he'd buried was no longer sleeping. Jungkook grabbed the man's collar, lifting him half an inch from the ground. "Say her name," he growled. The attacker only grinned, even as blood pooled beneath his ribs. "Yoonha." The name cracked Jimin in half. It had been forbidden, hidden, scratched out of every report, every journal. The name of the girl they'd both once sworn to protect. The girl who vanished 5 years ago, taking with her the arena's last surviving secret, the location of the love code. "You said she was dead," Jimin rasped. Jungkook looked away, jaw clenched. "I lied." The air thickened with betrayal. Lightning painted their faces in brief flashes, guilt, fury, grief. And then the shooter on the roof opened fire. Jimin dove, dragging Jungkook with him as stone exploded behind them. The attacker, half alive, became a shield. 1 bullet. 2, silence. The shooter was gone. The rain fell harder now, almost mocking. Around them, the arena groaned as if remembering the lives it had swallowed. Jungkook turned to Jimin, eyes hollow but burning. "They know we're together again. That means she's watching, and she's afraid." Jimin, soaked in blood and memory, stared at his best friend, his traitor, his only ally. "Then let's make her run." "You weren't supposed to remember her," Jungkook whispered, pressing the bloodied cloth tighter against his side. "That name was locked for a reason." Jimin didn't answer. His hands trembled slightly, not from the cold rain, but from the truth beginning to unwind inside him like a noose. They sat hidden in the skeletal frame of what used to be the arena's north wing, a rusted corridor filled with echoes of applause that no longer belonged to anyone. Above them, moonlight spilled through cracked ceilings, painting fractured halos on their wet skin. Jungkook watched Jimin carefully. "You saw the file, didn't you?" Jimin looked up, jaw clenched. "Was it real?" "That depends on what you think real means in a city like this." "Don't," Jimin snapped, his voice sharp. "Don't give me riddles. You gave me your word. Back then, in that studio on the 4th floor, you said you'd never lie to me again." "I kept my word," Jungkook said, low and dangerous. "But I never said I'd tell you everything." Jimin surged to his feet, his movements too fast, too raw. His gun was out in an instant, hand shaking only slightly as he pointed it at the man he once trusted with his life. "Say it, Jungkook. Say you sold me out to the Black Thread. Say Yoonha's alive. Say everything we believed in was just theater." Jungkook didn't flinch. His eyes, those damn eyes that always saw too much, never left Jimin's. "She's not just alive, Jimin. She's running the show now." The world stopped breathing. "No," Jimin said, almost laughing. "That's not possible. She died in the fire. I saw the report." "You saw what she wanted you to see," Jungkook said bitterly. "The Black Thread didn't kill her. They recruited her, because she has something they need, something we don't even understand." Jimin lowered the gun slowly. The air between them grew hot, like all the memories they'd buried were clawing their way up through their skin. "You knew she was alive this whole time." "I found out a year ago," Jungkook admitted. "They sent me her voice in a message. I didn't believe it at first, but when I heard her say your name—" "Jimin, it wasn't a threat. It was a warning." Jimin sat down again, his legs folding beneath him like paper. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "She was the reason I came back. Not for the consulting job, not for the pay. I got a call, no voice, just one word, eternal." "That's her code word," Jungkook said. "The one she used to use when we were compromised." Jimin stared into the dark. "Why now?" "Because someone else is hunting her," Jungkook said. "And they're willing to burn this city down to get to her. You. Me, we're collateral. She's the key to the love code, and if the wrong hands crack it, it's not just the arena that falls. It's every sanctuary left." Jimin's silence stretched long. Then he spoke, not looking at Jungkook. "I saw her once, 2 weeks ago, on the tram near Carlo Bridge. She wore the same perfume, lavender smoke. She didn't even turn around, but I knew it was her." Jungkook's expression tightened. "Then she wanted you to see her." "Why?" "Because she still loves you," Jungkook said quietly. "And she knows what she's about to do will break you." Before Jimin could answer, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. No ringtone, just vibration. He answered. A woman's voice, distorted, mechanical. "You weren't supposed to come back, Jimin." His blood froze. "Yoonha." The voice clicked off. No message, no goodbye. But the silence screamed louder than a gunshot. Jungkook stood, face pale. "She's watching us." Jimin's eyes flicked to the shattered window. Across the alley, the faintest glint of a sniper scope disappeared into darkness. "She's warning us," Jimin said. "No," Jungkook replied. "She's testing you." Suddenly, a piercing alarm split the night, the signal from the inner district. The underground network had been breached. They were too late. "She's already moved," Jungkook said, urgency filling his voice. "The Black Thread must have found her first." Jimin grabbed his coat, his expression carved in iron. "Then we go underground, now." Jungkook hesitated. "Are you ready to see what she's become?" Jimin didn't blink. "No, but I'm done running from ghosts." They left the broken arena behind them, their footsteps swallowed by the rising sirens and collapsing silence. Beneath the city, in the tunnels where the original love code had once been hidden, something ancient and cruel had awakened. And waiting for them in the shadows was a girl they once loved and no longer recognized. The heat underground was stifling, wet, metallic, heavy with secrets. Each step Jimin took echoed through the labyrinthine tunnels, his flashlight casting long, twitching shadows on the stone walls. He could still feel her voice, mechanical, distant, coiling inside his skull like smoke. Every part of him wanted to scream, to demand answers, to break something just to feel control again. "Why didn't you tell me the truth sooner?" Jimin asked, his voice low but cutting, slicing through the darkness like a blade. Jungkook was a few paces behind him, limping slightly. "Because you would have done exactly what you're doing now, chasing after a ghost instead of saving yourself." "That ghost was my life," Jimin snapped, spinning around. The flashlight caught Jungkook's face in stark angles, grime-streaked, eyes swollen with regret. "You didn't just lie, you buried her piece by piece in silence." Jungkook stepped closer. "I tried to protect you." "You don't get to decide what I survive," Jimin hissed. "Not after Prague. Not after I had to bury my mother with a closed casket." Jungkook flinched like the words struck him physically. "That wasn't me, Jimin." "But you were there. You watched it happen, and then you vanished." Silence clung to them. Somewhere deep within the tunnel system, water dripped in a slow, mocking rhythm. It was Jimin who finally moved, his shoulders tense, his voice softer but colder than before. "She kissed me the night before it burned down, you know," he said, not turning back. "Said she had something to confess, said it would change everything. I thought she meant us." Jungkook didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice was rough with unspoken years. "She kissed me too, 2 days before that." Jimin stopped walking. The silence turned lethal. "Was it real?" he asked. "I don't know anymore," Jungkook whispered. "She was always 5 steps ahead. I think she needed both of us to believe." Jimin clenched his fists until his knuckles cracked. "So we were just pawns in her game." "No," Jungkook said. "We were the game." They didn't speak again until the tunnel opened into the chamber, a vast underground space shaped like a cathedral, its ceiling lost in darkness, the air thick with incense and old music that had no source. In the center stood a single console, wrapped in vines of copper wire and etched with archaic code. It pulsed faintly, as if breathing. "This is where she first activated the code," Jungkook said quietly. "This is where it all began." Jimin approached the console. His fingers hovered over the surface, but he didn't touch it. "It looks like a confession booth." "Because that's what it is," came a voice. They spun around. She stood in the archway behind them, dressed in black like a shadow carved from velvet. Yoonha, alive, changed. Her hair was shorter now, her eyes colder, but her presence, the gravity she carried, was the same. She looked at both of them with an unreadable expression. "Hello, Jimin," she said. His chest caved in. Yoonha stepped forward, her hands raised, not in surrender but in caution. "I had to disappear. You wouldn't have understood back then." "I still don't," Jimin said, the storm in his voice held barely by a thread. "You let me grieve, you let me burn." "I was being hunted," she replied. "If I'd reached out to you, they would have used you to find me." "You mean the black thread?" Jungkook asked, stepping between her and Jimin like a buffer. "No," Yoonha said. "I mean the Order of 8. That name hadn't been spoken aloud in years. Jimin's eyes widened. "They're a myth." "No," she said, stepping closer. "They're the architects of the myth. They control the black thread. They created the arena as a test site. We were experiments." Jimin looked at her, at the face he had memorized for years. "What is the love code, Yoonha?" She looked at him with unbearable sorrow. "It's not a code, it's a weapon." Time stopped again. Jungkook's mouth fell open. "You told me it was a preservation system, for memories, for people." "It was supposed to be," she said. "But the Order corrupted it, turned it into a method to rewrite emotional truth, to reprogram identity, to make love obedient." Jimin stared at her. "So we never loved each other, just programming." "No," she said, stepping closer. "That part was real. That's why they wanted to destroy us." Jungkook's voice cracked. "So why are you still working with them?" Yoonha's eyes burned. "Because I'm dismantling them, and I need your help." Jimin looked between her and Jungkook. You want us to help you destroy the Order of Eight." "Yes," she said, and her voice broke for the first time. "Because I can't do it without you, and because they have my sister." Jimin's breath caught. "You never told me you had a sister." "I didn't, because she died in front of me. And now she's alive, wearing someone else's name and calling herself Director Lee." Jungkook gasped. "Lee, the head of the thread." Yoonha nodded. "She's not just the head. She's the one who initiated the arena collapse. She erased me, erased all of us." Jimin's voice shook. "Then we end this together." Yoonha reached out. "One last dance." Jimin hesitated, then took her hand. The past did not dissolve. It pulsed between their fingers like a second heartbeat. Jungkook turned away for a moment, the flicker in his eyes unseen. But in his pocket, a message from the black thread blinked silently. "If she remembers the rest, you know what you have to do." And in that moment, Jungkook didn't know who the real enemy was anymore. "You're hiding something," Jimin said, his voice sharp as broken glass. The hum of the underground console was the only sound in the cathedral chamber now. The pulse of its code shimmered across the wet stone like a heartbeat gone wrong. He turned slowly, his eyes locked on Jungkook, who stood frozen beneath the flickering light, jaw tight, breath uneven, hand subtly brushing the message device in his coat pocket. "I'm not," Jungkook said. "You hesitated," Jimin snapped, stepping closer, his voice rising with every syllable. "When she mentioned Director Lee, you flinched." Jungkook didn't back away. "That's paranoia talking." "It's instinct," Jimin hissed. "And my instincts kept me alive when everyone else burned." "Stop it," Yoonha cut in, voice strained. "This isn't helping." Jimin rounded on her. "And you show up from the dead, drop a universe-sized bomb about mind control and sister villains, and expect us to fall back in line like obedient dancers." Yoonha didn't flinch, her calm was lethal. "You want the truth, I'll give you all of it." She approached the console, inputting a series of commands. The floor beneath them groaned as part of the chamber opened, a deep recess revealing an old data vault with glass walls. Inside were 3 capsules. Each held a version of them. Yoonha, Jungkook, Jimin. Frozen, asleep. "What the hell is this?" Jimin breathed, stepping back in horror. His hands curled at his sides. "Is this some kind of clone lab?" "No," Yoonha said. "It's worse. Those are our original bodies, the ones we left behind when the love code was tested on us 10 years ago." Jungkook staggered forward, his face drained of all color. "We were uploaded." "Modified," Yoonha said. "Your memories, your choices, even your loyalties. That's why none of us remember the same version of the past, because they programmed us differently." "No," Jimin whispered, unable to look away from the body inside the capsule. His own face, his own tattoos, the scar above his eyebrow he thought was real. "I remember my mother dying. I remember the smell of fire, the screams." "They're real," Yoonha said, softer now. "But they've been edited. Moments cut, rewritten, emotionally reframed. What you felt was real, but it may not have been. Yours." Jimin turned on Jungkook. "How long have you known?" Jungkook said nothing. Yoonha answered for him. "Since Prague." Jimin stared at Jungkook as betrayal cracked through his ribs. "That was 3 years ago." "I wanted to tell you," Jungkook said finally, his voice raw. "But they had me under Protocol 0. If I spoke, it would have triggered a neural collapse. I would have died, Jimin." "Then you should have died," Jimin said quietly, and it hurt worse than a gunshot. Yoonha stepped between them. "Enough, we don't have time for this." Jimin laughed, hollow and broken. No, this is exactly what we need. Time. Because apparently we've been living in a simulation of love, a replica of trauma. You two kept secrets that rewired my soul." "You don't understand what's at stake," Jungkook began. Jimin snapped. "Oh, I understand. I understand you let me love a lie. You watched me bleed for ghosts while you served them tea." "I was protecting you." "No," Jimin snarled. "You were obeying." The air shattered. All 3 stood motionless in a standoff, silence thick as a noose. Then a faint beep echoed through the chamber. A projection blinked to life above the console. A woman in white, her face identical to Yoonha, but older, colder. Director Lee. "Hello, my darling sister," the projection said, her voice both affectionate and venomous. "I see you found the vault. How quaint. You always did love melodrama." Yoonha's fists clenched. Director Lee smiled. "If you're seeing this, it means the failsafe has been triggered. You're inside the core, which means the love code has detected emotional volatility beyond threshold. In other words, betrayal." "What is she talking about?" Jimin asked. "The code doesn't just track actions," Yoonha said, eyes wide. "It tracks emotional shifts." Jungkook took a step back. "What happens if the threshold is breached?" Director Lee answered. "Self-destruction." Alarms erupted. The vault lights turned red. The floor began to vibrate beneath them. "You triggered it," Jungkook said to Jimin. "Your anger, your distrust, it counted as a system break." "Because the system wasn't made for truth," Jimin said bitterly. "It was made for loyalty." Yoonha ran to the console, fingers flying. "I can delay it. Maybe reroute it through the cathedral circuit." The projection flickered again. "Oh, and Jungkook," Director Lee's voice turned cold. "You disappoint me." The screen died. Jungkook froze. "She knows I defected." "You didn't," Jimin snapped. "I did, a month ago," Jungkook admitted. "But it wasn't real. I was playing double agent." "You're still playing." "Stop it," Yoonha screamed. "I need both of you to shut up and let me work." But the chamber was collapsing. The capsules began to drain. Steam hissed from the walls. The past was dying before their eyes. Then Yoonha did something no one expected. She cut her palm open with a blade and pressed her blood to the console. Instantly, the alarm stopped. A new door opened. A hidden path. Jimin stared. "How did you?" "She programmed it with my DNA," Yoonha said, panting. "She always wanted me to come back. She just didn't expect me to want revenge." She looked at Jimin. "You said you were done running from ghosts. I need to know if you meant it." Jimin looked at Jungkook, then back at her. "I did, but I never thought the ghosts would still be breathing." They entered the tunnel, beyond the door together. Not friends. Not lovers. Something more dangerous. 3 broken souls, walking deeper into the mouth of the machine that once rewrote their pasts, now determined to burn it down. "Tell me something real, Jimin." Yoonha's voice broke the silence as they stepped into the corridor beyond the blood-locked vault. Her words echoed against the narrow steel walls like a plea, not a challenge. The passage curved downward into what felt less like a tunnel and more like a descent into something ancient and buried, beneath code, beneath memory, beneath the truth they thought they knew. Jimin didn't answer at first. His eyes scanned every wall, every flicker of surveillance. He was bleeding somewhere under his shirt, but the adrenaline made pain irrelevant. Still, her words clung to him. "Everything I thought was real," he said eventually, "got rewritten by the people I trusted most." "I didn't want this for you," she said quietly. "Any of it." "You made choices for me," he snapped. "You disappeared. You lied. You handed me a broken version of myself and let me fall in love with it." Jungkook trailed behind them, silent, jaw locked. His mind was ticking like a bomb. He hadn't said a word since they left the vault. Not about Director Lee. Not about the message still pulsing in his pocket. When they reached the bottom of the corridor, they found it. A circular room, all white. No doors. No exit. Just a single chair in the center and cameras in all 4 corners. Jimin tensed. "This is a trap." Yoonha approached the chair slowly. Her shoulders were trembling. "This is where they tested us." Jungkook stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "Tested how?" She turned around, and for the first time since she returned, she looked small, wounded, like the girl they'd lost. "They called it the calibration chamber. They sat us here, one by one. They made us watch. Everything, every memory we ever had, every love, every betrayal. Then they rewrote it, spliced pieces together, edited out the pain until all that was left was obedience. Jimin stared at her. You said we were modified. You never said we were erased. I didn't know how to tell you, she whispered. I wanted to believe there was still something real left in us. He laughed bitterly. And now? She met his gaze. Now I think we're the virus in their system. Jungkook moved to the chair and ran his fingers along its edge. What do they want now? Yoonha's voice was barely audible. They want to extract the last piece, the part we kept hidden even from ourselves, the eternal fragment. Jimin's head snapped toward her. What is that? It's the raw imprint of our shared memory, she said. The night we all made the pact in the arena, before the fire, before the rewriting. It's the only piece they couldn't touch because we made it real, together. They can't let it exist, Jungkook said grimly, because it proves we were more than puppets. Yoonha nodded. They're going to purge us unless we give it up willingly. A voice crackled through the ceiling speaker, cold, feminine. You're already too late. Director Lee. Yoonha, Jimin, Jungkook, my perfect trifecta of failure. Did you really think you could rewrite the narrative? Jimin stepped forward. We're not here to rewrite, we're here to end it. Lee laughed. I don't need you to surrender, I just need you to remember. The lights dimmed. The chair began to glow. Then screens flickered to life around the room, dozens of them, each showing different memories, scenes of their pasts, fragmented, distorted. Yoonha standing in the arena, whispering to Jimin in the wings. Jungkook bleeding in the snow, clutching a photograph of a girl with no name. Jimin screaming into a fire, a body in his arms that dissolved into static. No, Jimin whispered. This isn't how it happened. Lee's voice turned sharper. It's how we archived it. You don't own your past, Jimin. We do. You belong to the code. Suddenly, one of the screens showed something that had never happened, or wasn't supposed to. Yoonha, holding a knife. Stabbing Jimin. He staggered back. What the hell is that? It's not real, Yoonha said, horrified. I never. She did, Lee cut in. Version 4.3 in one of our simulations. She broke protocol. She killed you. Jimin looked at her, shaking. Is it true? I don't remember, Yoonha said, voice breaking. But if it was a simulation, it wasn't me. She's done it before, Lee said. And she'll do it again. That's the beauty of memory. Repetition becomes truth. Jungkook slammed his fist into the chair. Shut it down. You want the fragment. You'll have to take it from us by force. Oh, Jungkook, Lee purred. That's exactly what I'm doing. The walls began to close in. Yoonha screamed. They're initiating collapse protocol. Jimin pulled her behind him. What do we do? We give them what they can't process, Jungkook said suddenly. Something too real, too unpredictable. He stepped into the chair and sat down. Wait, Jimin shouted. You don't know what that will. I do, Jungkook said, eyes locked on him. And it's the only way to flood the system. He closed his eyes and whispered a word. A name. Yoonseo. Everything stopped. The screens turned to static. The walls froze. The entire chamber buzzed with sudden confusion. Jimin whispered, Who is Yoonseo? Jungkook opened his eyes. Tears slipped down his cheek. She was before you, before Yoonha, before the programming. I buried her so deep even I forgot. But she was my anchor, my real memory, my forbidden love. Yoonha covered her mouth. Lee's voice shattered through the speaker. What have you done? Jungkook's hands gripped the chair. I remembered the one thing you couldn't edit. The chamber imploded with light. Jimin reached for him, too late. Jungkook screamed as the chair lit up like a furnace. Code burst from the walls, slamming into his body, rewriting and unraveling all at once. He convulsed. Blood ran from his nose. Then everything exploded into white. When it cleared, he was still. Yoonha ran to him. No, Jungkook. Jimin stumbled forward, eyes wide, his voice trembling. Is he? He's alive, she whispered. But he triggered the internal paradox. He remembered something the code couldn't verify. It short-circuited the system. Jungkook's eyes fluttered open. I bought us time, he croaked. But she'll reset, she always resets. Jimin crouched beside him, gripping his shoulder. Then let's end her before she gets the chance. Yoonha stood, face steel. To do that, we need to find the source server, the real one, not the decoys. Jimin looked at Jungkook, then at the wall, now cracked open from the paradox surge. Beyond it was another tunnel. Darker, colder, and waiting. Jimin whispered, no more rewrites. Jungkook nodded weakly, just the truth. Yoonha raised her eyes, then let's bury the lie. The tunnel beyond the paradox surge was colder than death. Every step Jimin took made the hair on his neck stand up, as though the very air recoiled from them. The silence wasn't empty, it was listening. The passage twisted in unnatural angles, as if built by something not entirely human. And etched into the walls were phrases in every known language, repeating the same 3 words. Love is control. Jungkook walked slowly, his body still recovering from the overload. His hands twitched occasionally, like his nerves were unsure whether they still belonged to him. But his eyes were sharper than ever, burning with the weight of memory and something new. Resolve. Yoonha moved with precision, focused, every gesture calculated. But Jimin could tell, her hands trembled when she thought no one was watching. She'll be waiting for us at the core, she whispered, voice barely audible over the distant hum of machinery. That's where the mother key is. Jimin glanced sideways. The what? Yoonha exhaled. It's the original line of code, the first script. It's what gave the love code its name. And it was written by someone outside the order. Who? Jungkook rasped. My mother. The tunnel darkened around them, like even the walls recoiled at the name. Jimin stopped. You never said anything about your mother being involved. Because I didn't know until a week ago, Yoonha said. She was one of the founding engineers. She wanted the code to preserve human emotion, but the order took it, corrupted it, turned it into a weapon. When she resisted, they wiped her existence clean. Jungkook's voice was low. Director Lee. Yoonha nodded. She was adopted into the Lee family, but her original name was Yoon Myra, my half-sister. She erased our mother, took her research, twisted it. Jimin couldn't stop the chill that crawled up his spine. So this isn't just revenge, it's blood. No, Yoonha said, eyes sharp. It's justice. They reached the threshold of the core. A giant vault door loomed ahead, humming with energy. In the center of it was a handprint scanner, organic, alive, pulsing. Jungkook narrowed his eyes. It needs a bloodline match. Yoonha stepped forward, raising her hand. Before she could touch it, a gunshot rang out. The bullet grazed her shoulder, spinning her to the ground. Jimin moved without thinking, firing into the shadows. Jungkook lunged toward Yoonha, dragging her back. From the darkness, a figure emerged. Tall, calm, wearing the insignia of the order, dressed in pristine white, and her face eerily familiar. Director Lee. But beside her, another woman. Older, worn, eyes like frozen rivers. Myra, Yoonha gasped, clutching her bleeding arm. Director Lee smiled coolly. You always had the flair for the dramatic. Jimin stepped forward, gun aimed. Back away. Still playing the hero, Myra mused. How quaint. Do you even know what you're protecting? Jungkook aimed as well. The last real version of ourselves. You mean the fractured illusions you cling to like wounded animals? Myra's voice turned sharper. You were prototypes. You were never supposed to love. Jimin's voice dropped into something darker. And yet we did. Yoonha stood up slowly, her eyes locked on Myra. You killed her. Myra tilted her head. She killed herself. She refused to surrender the mother key, so I built something better. I became the key. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. You're the failsafe. I am the code, Myra said, and you are obsolete. She snapped her fingers. The walls exploded in red. Armed enforcers stormed in. Drones ignited. Sirens screamed. Jimin grabbed Yoonha. Jungkook opened fire. Chaos erupted. Yoonha shouted over the gunfire. We need her handprint. She's the only one who can open the vault. Jimin didn't hesitate. He ran straight at Myra, bullets flying past his head, each footstep like defiance made flesh. Myra raised her weapon, but hesitated. Just long enough. Jimin tackled her to the ground. Her gun flew. She fought like someone trained in every simulation, every outcome. But he fought like someone with nothing left to lose. He slammed her hand into the scanner. It screamed. The vault door opened. A blinding light flooded the corridor. Everything froze. Even Myra. Inside the vault was no server. No machine. Just a room. Circular. White. And in the center, floating midair, was a strand of light woven like DNA but pulsing with emotion. You could feel it. Grief, joy, fear, desire, regret. The original love code. Jungkook pulled Yoonha inside. Jimin stood over Myra, panting. Do it, she whispered. End me. He raised the gun. His hand shook. I'm not like you, he said. She smiled. That's why I win. She pressed something in her pocket. A detonation signal. The whole structure rumbled. Run, Jungkook yelled. They dove into the vault. The door slammed shut, just as the corridor behind them erupted into fire. Inside the room, time stilled. Jimin looked around, breathing hard. Now what? Yoonha approached the floating code. We rewrite it. Jungkook frowned. How? She turned to face them. With all three of us. Jimin stepped forward. So did Jungkook. Their hands hovered around the light. Together, they touched it. The room vanished. Memories flooded them, true memories. The arena, not burning but alive. Their laughter, their first dances, the pact, the love that wasn't programmed, that wasn't designed. It was messy, it was painful, it was human. They remembered everything. The pain, the betrayals, and the love that refused to die. When the light dimmed, they were still standing. Together, the code had been rewritten. The room opened behind them. No more walls. No more lies. Just the world outside, waiting. Jimin looked at them both. This doesn't end here. Yoonha nodded. No, but it begins again, for real this time. Jungkook smiled faintly. No more edits. And together, they stepped into the light. The light outside was not blinding. It was soft, real, not simulated, not rendered, no haze of algorithmic illusion. It was dawn. For the first time in years, Jimin felt the warmth on his skin without suspicion, without scanning the air for drones, without waiting for another voice to hijack his thoughts. The world beyond the core was quiet. The arena ruins behind them had crumbled into dust, and with them, the systems that once surveilled every breath, every heartbeat, every flicker of love. Yoonha walked a few paces ahead, her shoulder bandaged, her gait uneven but unshaken. Her eyes no longer held secrets, just sadness and peace. Jungkook remained close to Jimin's side. They hadn't spoken since the rewrite. Words felt too heavy, too unnecessary. Something had shifted between all of them in that moment, not erased, not replaced, just purified. A message pinged in their neural receivers, the last artifact of the love code. A single transmission, marked urgent. Sender, unknown. Subject, eternal retribution. Message, this was only phase 1. Jimin sighed. I guess some things survive, he muttered. Yoonha looked back at him. So do we. They reached the border of the dead district. Beyond it lay the city, fractured but alive, no longer controlled, no longer observed. People were emerging from shelters. Old systems were failing. New ones hadn't replaced them yet. Freedom was messy. They paused beneath a half-collapsed billboard, still flickering with an old slogan. Love is control. Jungkook pulled a can of red spray paint from his jacket. Where he got it, Jimin didn't ask. Jungkook just stepped forward, raised his hand, and crossed out the final word. Love is. Then he wrote beneath it, in bold, shaking letters. Love is choice. The three of them stood in front of the message for a moment, their silhouettes long in the morning light. We're not heroes, Yoonha said softly. No, Jimin agreed. We're the era they couldn't predict. And what happens now? Jungkook asked. Jimin looked at the sunrise, at the city waking up. We live, he said. For real this time. No simulations, no scripts, just whatever's left. He turned to them, offering a faint, tired smile. Even if it breaks us. Yoonha nodded, especially if it does. They started walking. No more missions. No more vaults. No more codes. Just three fractured souls, stepping into a world they no longer owed anything to, but might, somehow, be able to help rebuild. And somewhere deep underground, buried beneath ash and algorithm, the mother key flickered once. Then went dark forever. The end,